Hi, I'm with the Northern Illinois University team at the 2018 NSPS student competition, and they are gathered in front of the map that they created from their day of fieldwork on site. So I'm going to begin by asking them to introduce themselves.
I'm Eric.
Skylar.
Joey.
Ryan.
So this was a little bit of a different project than you normally do in your classes, or if you have some job experience, probably a little bit different from the kind of work you might do on the job. So let's start by talking a little bit about how you prepared for this. You didn't know exactly what you were going to encounter, both in terms of equipment and terrain, but what did you guys do to either think about this or practice before you got here?
Well, we went out in the field and right behind our building on campus and just started using some of the technology that we learned about in our first class. And just it wasn't really any of the technology that we used during this project, but it did help us just get back in the mindset of being able to use those types of things without all of our the robots and all of that. So I think that just helped us.
So what was the equipment you used in that field behind your building?
We used the non-robotic total station and what else did we use? The leveling.
We used some levels. That's about all that we used for equipment, but we also had some time in the inside in the office and worked on calculations during those field days too.
Did you guys have any practice using steel tapes?
Yeah, we actually had a whole class just revolving around steel tapes and pulling with tension.
Class is in, you mean a semester?
Whole semester.
And so when you had that, how close in time was that to the present day?
Oh, well, it was probably about a year ago. But we still, when we were out behind the building, we pulled some chain and made sure everything. We still remembered what we did.
So you did use your steel tape behind the building as well? Okay. And then let me ask about the compass. How many of you thought about the possibility that you might have to use a compass?
The possibility might have been there, but it was not something that we had actually trained or worked on. And I don't believe any of us have any actual compass experience.
I have a little bit from being in the Army, so I wasn't, if we had it, it was going to be something we had. Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about how you approach this. Did you guys think about how you're going to attack this field problem in terms of who was going to do what, or did you have to figure that out after you got here?
Oh, we did most of that in the field, figuring out who does what, because other than Joe being able to use the compass, we've all been trained together on how to use like the leveling rods and how to use the level itself. But for like most recently in class when we were using the levels, Ryan was doing most of the shots there, so we're like, okay, Ryan, you take that part and we'll run the rods for you.
So for the people who are watching this video, they need to understand what it is you guys actually had to do. So Joe, I'm going to ask you to point to the only physical point that existed when you got to the site.
The only point we had when we got out there was this right here is the benchmark right in the middle of the acre.
So it was a horizontal control point as well as a vertical benchmark.
Yes, sir.
So when you went there, Skylar, what was the first thing you did, knowing you only had compasses, steel tapes, and a level?
The first thing that we did was we looked at the site, looked how big it was, and the different terrain, and then we took the compass, and Joe sat on the benchmark, and then got us in our direction, and then we started hitting out our 3, 4, 5 triangles to find the lines.
So Joe, did you stand at that center point with the compass and line somebody up?
What I did is I set ourselves up at the center point right above it, and then I put a lath in there and found it, and then we also sent somebody out that way.
So which direction did you send somebody? Show me on the map and tell me where they were.
We set them out about 100. We set them out 100 feet to the north, and then we did 100 feet to the south. So we had both directions going.
And why did you go in both directions?
It was just something nice to have, so we could have that the connecting line in case we needed to pull anything like that. It was just nice to have that there.
So after you guys had those 200-foot lines, presumably was that the north direction or the bearing of the east and west lines of your tract?
It would have been on the bearings.
So what was the next step?
I believe from there we set out our 3, 4, 5 triangles to get our perpendicular, and we headed west to get our what we called the west center point on the west line.
So since you're standing next to the map,
Yeah.
Skylar, I'm going to ask you to explain with your finger on the map what Ryan just described.
Okay. So we went from the benchmark and we set out a triangle going 15 feet down south and then 20 feet west, and then continued the west line to get to a west center point.
Great. So I'm not going to drag you through the whole process here. I'm going to use other interviews with other teams to talk through the process, realizing that different teams use different methods. And then you had to topo this thing without using the azimuth ring on your level. So does that mean you guys set up a grid or not?
Yeah, we set up a 30-foot by 30-foot grid because we saw there wasn't much change in the topography. And we set up on the east side A through H, and then 1 through 8, and then cranked it out.
So once you had those lines, 30 feet of intersecting and 30-foot intervals, did you go out and stake every intersection?
We didn't stake the intersections. We just paced them out, and we had the lath set at every point, like A through H, 1 through 7, so we could line ourselves up with that and then pace it.
And so for the topographic survey part of the exercise, what were your individual roles?
I was running a level rod, along with
I was running a level rod.
So were you running 2 level rods for this survey?
we were leapfrogging off of each other. So
You're trying to save some time.
yeah, we'd save time, and also help just for pacing it out. You only had to do your 1 pace instead of 2.
And I'm imagining if you were both doing that, you could also help each other line up with those.
Yeah, we helped a lot because we were seeing a couple hundred feet, so we helped a lot on the leapfrogging. And then we also had help from those two.
So what was your job?
I was keeping the book and doing the math for the elevation on site.
So did you actually compute elevations as you went along?
Each point I would compute before the next point.
Good deal. I didn't see a whole lot of that happening. I know most students today don't do that. And what did you do?
I was observing from the auto level, which we set just a little bit off of our benchmark. That way we were basically going back and forth and staying within a reasonable distance of their leapfrog.
So what did you think of this field experience, as well as the process? You had an entire day to develop your map, as well as your presentation, and then this morning you presented. So what do you think of this entire experience?
I really enjoyed the field work. It was something entirely new and a whole new challenge to figure out. Just you're getting out there, and it's a new environment, new challenge to complete, and it was just a lot of fun to do that.
The thing I found really interesting was us 4 had to work together and had to come up with the ideas and actually wrap our brains up around how to do this. And we couldn't ask our instructor, which was a definite challenge.
I really enjoyed everything. It was nice coming from doing it in class and then coming with these 3 guys and knowing that we all have our strengths and being able to work with one another was really nice, and something we'll bring back to our school, and hopefully our school will keep coming back to these.
I got to say I enjoyed the challenge of not actually having some of the things that we are normally trained to use and having to actually think about what we needed to do.
So it sounds like you guys are probably good candidates to be professional surveyors, because one of the things when you go back and look at our surveying history is that the surveyors had to make do with whatever resources they had to get the job done. And when you think about what they got done in those 100 years ago or 200 years ago, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really amazing to go back and look at the original surveys, especially on the public land system, since that's what we're on.
So one of the judges is from this area around Las Vegas, and he mentioned that the original government land office surveys was done in the 1880s. So you were kind of retracing their steps. You weren't retracing their survey per se, but you were kind of trying to do it under the same kinds of conditions. They probably had a better compass than you did.
Yeah. It was, I mean, one big thing we've always focused on in our classes is the history behind it. And even in doing stuff with like our robotic total station, it's always like you first got to learn the history of it and how they did it, and that's how you understand how it works.
So are you guys going to go back to campus and talk about to the other people in your program, like, you guys don't know what surveying is till you've done something like we've done?
I don't know if I'd say much on that because some of them are probably a lot better than me, but definitely this was an eye-opening experience, and hopefully they'll be able to, the younger kids will eventually be able to come into this and try it out.
Well, thank you for your time with us, and good luck with the competition.
Thank you.